Canada, welcome back to another edition of Canadian Citizen Journal. I'm your host, alias Guy. So, we're going to go over a few different things here today, but first of all, we got some breaking news. It's really sad, but it's no surprise coming from Hamas. They're evil, period. I hate having to play this stuff, but it's news and I want you guys to keep up with it. Here it is.
I want to bring you some breaking news now, and returning to one of our top stories today. Israel says Hamas has not handed over the body of hostage Shiri Bibas, claiming Israel has instead been given the remains of an anonymous body without identification. In a statement, the IDF says during the identification process, it was found that the additional body received was not that of Shiri Bibas, and no match was found of any other abductee. It is an anonymous body without identification. The IDF confirmed they had received the bodies of Shiri's children as well. We'll have more on this as it comes.
These people make me sick. Okay, so there it is. That's out there. And last I heard, pretty much right when I was recording this, but I haven't had a chance to actually make sure that it's not facing false news. But it sounds like two of them are actually, both the kids are not real. And I don't think the mom's been recovered yet. So I'll try and keep a highlight on everything that's coming out of there. Moving on. So Juno posted this. They're kind of a new organization full of very experienced journalists who've left other fields of kind of propaganda or been through it and have kind of started their own thing. And I suggest you follow them. They're straight up Canadian. They're honest. They're really good. They're really straightforward, and they don't care who's what side. They tell the news. That's just the way it is. So I just want to play a clip here because yesterday I showed you guys that Saint Ange, who actually is not running again, she announced it before she announced this, what I'm going to show you with the CBC. Not only is she trying to increase the amount of funding going to the CBC, but she wants to lock it in and make it law that they get a certain percentage, and it goes up every year, blah, blah, blah. I wanted to show you this yesterday, but it's hard for me to keep my videos short. So I'm not going to keep talking. I'm just going to play the video, and you can see what she says.
The existence of our public broadcaster depends on a single line in the budget. I'm proposing that we remove the decision making around funding from the political cycles, whether it's the elections or the budget. Many countries around the world have chosen that path in giving their public broadcaster predictable, viable, and stable funding. CBC does not belong to the Liberals. It does not belong to the Conservatives, and it does not belong to any other political parties. It belongs to the Canadian people. And this is why, to be able to give CBC Radio-Canada the means to fulfill its mandate, I propose that it be financed directly in the legislation instead of in the budget through statutory appropriation.
So, it is propaganda. They'll say whatever it takes to keep the left in power. It's true. I was doing a little bit of back searching and I was checking out Trudeau Mania. Okay, do you remember big old Pierre Trudeau? I wasn't born when he first got started, when the whole Trudeau Mania thing hit, but I was born and alive during some of his terror reign, which for some reason they're only out east think that he's the greatest leader ever. The guy was a sham socialist who rode around on a load down BSA. Pretty sure it was a BSA. They said it was a Harley, but looking at the pictures, it looks like a BSA, dressed in German military garb, flaunting and putting his finger up at people. Like, the guy's a pompous socialist. Anyways, moving on. They want to lock this in, and she's going on saying how they're neither nor. Yes, I think CBC should be defunded. Why? Because I don't think the government should spread news. If you want to have if you want the government to spend a small amount of money on helping Canadian entertainment, I can't see why not. But even that is completely biased within the CBC. This is why nobody watches it, because they run woke crap. So the radios I feel sorry for, because being remote, there's no radio, there's nothing. This all you get, if you're lucky, is CBC radio. And it's sure nice to a lot of the northern communities to be able to wish somebody a happy birthday when you haven't seen them you haven't seen them in 5 years, but every year you call up the radio and you make sure that you wish them a happy birthday, and they say it on the radio, and the radio gets it out to people who live in off-grid communities. I appreciate that, and I don't want to see that gone. But they got to get rid of the news. Tell the weather. Do local activities that are unique to each area that you're doing, and don't allow any political or biasm. And if there is any, the ombudsman should be should be spread out so that every political facet of that area has the right to say, hey, I'm getting tired of this newscaster or whatever telecaster and the way that they're always doing this, or that type of shaping. We don't have that. It all comes from the top down, and it shouldn't. It should come from the bottom up. Let me tell you, when I'm in the bush and I get to CBC and I'm taking a break from cutting wood or something, the last thing I want to hear is some woke crap. It just drives me nuts. Absolutely bonkers. Anyways, so moving on. High-speed rail. I put this on this morning's show. Or yesterday's show, I should say. The corruption in this never ends. So I'm gonna go through this pretty quick, and I'm gonna show you where SNC Lavilin falls into this. Take a watch. Oh, sorry. First, we're gonna start off with Janice McGregor. You know how I feel about her. She's, oh my God. Okay. Listen to her biasm and listen to how she talks. It's hilarious. Okay, about the rail.
And we were listening there to the transportation minister, and they mentioned that contract with Cadence, that private-public partnership, is expected to be signed in the coming days or weeks. We're in an election year. How could this project be affected then by the possibility, and we saw a question asked about this, the possibility about a new government?
Indeed, because we know that the sort of two main players on that stage, Anita Anand and Justin Trudeau himself, not running again. We could be weeks away from entering a caretaker kind of mode as far as the federal government is concerned. And yet this contract setting a path for a very ambitious thing, nation building wise.
Catch that? Ambitious thing, nation building wise. It's the wording.
About to be signed as they're on their way out the door.
That was an echo of Trudeau, by the way. It's a nation-building project. Nation building. Yeah.
Trudeau was asked about this. Here's what he said.
High-speed rail in this country was always going to be a project that would be take long enough to build that it would cover multiple governments at all different orders of government, from municipal to provincial to federal. And it takes a will and a determination by a government to move forward and lock in this project.
This development phase, the price tag for it is $3.9 billion. In and of itself, not a budget.
Okay, so if you watch the previous episode, I put a clip in there. And in that clip was Mr. Carbon Tax Carney. Everything that he said, listen to the rest of what she is saying.
busting amount over 4 or 5 years, but does come in a context when a lot of people are talking about needing to keep budgets balanced. Even, for example, leadership contenders who have talked about keeping your economic powder dry through some rough years in the near future, balancing the budget over the lifespan of the next parliament, perhaps. Mark Carney has talked about the need to sort of fix the books in a different way.
Okay, and no, he hasn't. He hasn't actually said that. He said 3 different things. He said the exact same thing Trudeau said in 2015 when Trudeau was running and got elected, is that he's going to spend some money, small deficits, little deficits for 3 years and then balance the budget. And then he said he's going to try to balance the budget right away. And then he said, while balancing the budget is definitely a priority, we will do it in a slow manner until we do finally balance the budget before the end of our term. All 3 things completely different to where he was saying them. One was out east, one was out west, and one was in Quebec.
Then perhaps the Conservatives are intent on fixing the books. Pierre Poilievre has signaled any new spending would require equivalent of spending in cuts. So would the Conservatives want to be implementing this new project? Would this also be their vision? We know that in the past, at a policy convention, Conservatives have voted in favor of the idea of high-speed rail. Would they be on board for something that ultimately could cost $80 to $100 billion, though? That is a lot of cuts to pay for something like that.
Ooh, that is a lot of cuts to pay for something like that.
And yet, if this contract is signed before Trudeau and Anand are out the door, it is something that could cost a future government money to get out of.
See? This is how it works. These people, all they care about is money. I'm going to show you right after this clip. They're getting rich before anything's even signed. They're getting rich.
So this is going to be something to watch.
And we also...
Yeah, okay. No more of that. Okay, so... Well, you ask. Alias. Who's getting rich? Well, obviously, there's some companies in there. You've named some good ones. I have. But I'm not done. I'm going to attack this. Lots. I'm going to keep breaking it down for everybody, so everybody gets to see how many pieces this thing breaks into and how complicated they run the money machine. Okay? So, SNC Lavilin. Geez, they're in the news again. They're getting, man, like there's all this. Guess who's going to be building the high-speed rail? Well, it would be SNC Lavilin. Now, the SNC Lavilin group, sneaky little buggers, because they were having really hard time securing other contracts. They had a really bad name. They had to do something. They decided, well, let's change our name up. Montreal, September 12th, 2023. SNC Lavilin Group, a fully integrated professional service and project management company with offices around the world, today announced that it is rebranding to Atkins Realis. This is right off their own website, ladies and gentlemen. Right off their website. Here it is. Now, they also did this. They secured Montreal-based engineering firm Atkins Realis is on solid enough financial footing to resume acquisitions, its CEO said Tuesday after the company announced it had made a $300 million deal to expand its footprint in the Western United States. This just went down 2 days ago. Tuesday. 3 days ago. Before the announcement. Things make you go, So, after markets closed, the company formerly known as SNC Lavilin said it would acquire a 70% stake in David Evans Enterprise, a Portland, Oregon-based firm specializing primarily in the transportation sector. Not going to go through anymore because that pretty much says it all right there. And how do they all tie up? Well, let me tell you. The Canadian government has selected the Cadence Consortium, as the preferred private developer partner for the Alto high-speed rail project between Quebec City and Toronto. The Cadence team comprises CDPQ Infra, Atkins Realis, Keolis, Seastra, SNCF Voyageurs, and Air Canada. We'll be dealing with those other ones in future episodes. Now, Rena, what do you mean they're making money already? They're making money already. Well, it's an amazing thing when you start buying up companies and you know where to roll the dollars on, and you know when something's going to be said, and then all of a sudden, right out of the blue, you get some crazy. It must be a fluke. There's no way they could have planned for this to happen. Atkins-Realis shares rise on 70-speed rail project 70%. Atkins-Realis Group shares rose Wednesday morning after the company said it was picked to develop a new high-speed rail line in Canada, and also said it had taken a majority stake in David Evan Enterprises. Shares rose from 5.9% to 73.68 Canadian dollars, which is $51.9. Montreal Engineering Service, a nuclear company, said late Tuesday it will pay about $300 million to acquire the 70% stake in Portland, Oregon-based David Evans Enterprises, a deal that also includes a path towards full ownership of the engineering firm. So, when are we get what you got to like, you got to subscribe, you got to share. We got to get this out. Like, people have to know this. They have to know who they're voting for. The media doesn't talk about this. They just don't. Certain politicians will talk about it, and they'll even cut, and the news cuts and edits or tries to make sure that they're done asking their questions, or even worse, the way it's set up, especially in press secretaries, is usually the independents or the back row doesn't either get to ask questions or they're last in asking questions. They got to kind of wait their way. So I don't know if you saw that one clip where CBC was complaining that they're elbowing me. Well, of course they were elbowing you, because you're trying to get in where the people who were speaking wanted local media there. They didn't want the CBC and the CTV blowheads. They didn't want them. They didn't want the propaganda. They would have got to you, but they would have liked to have answered the local media and other media to get their voice out. So we're going to move on. I found a clip I thought you would be really interested in. Now, Bannon. A lot of people like him. A lot of people don't like him. But Bannon says some pretty interesting stuff. And I suggest you watch this. It's on Sun. Lily Unleashed. Lily's great. Follow him. He's awesome. I want to get to this. Play it for you. And this is only just a clip out of it, but I think it's important that you hear what he says.
I just think it's now time for the Canadian people to start to really think through the 21st century. Because if you look at Canadian politics, it's been so much small ball over the last couple of decades. Now, huge questions about the future of the country and the future of the 21st century are before you. One last thing, let me say.
Okay.
President Trump is not trolling people in this. I have people call me all day long. Is President Trump just trolling? Is President Trump just trolling Canadians?
That's what it seemed like at the beginning.
Yes,
it seemed like he was poking Justin Trudeau in the eye as he.
Although he refers to Trudeau as Governor Trudeau.
Yeah.
He is not for the Canadian people. This is why I've decided in a very busy time to take this interview, because I have such respect for you and such respect for your paper. This is serious. President Trump could. I think of everything we're working on that President Trump's working on. I think this hemispheric defense, which is Panama, it's also Latin America, with Bolsonaro and with Milei and getting the Chinese Communist Party out of the Amazon. But this part from Panama to the security of all of it with Greenland and Canada and the Arctic, coupled with getting out 10 million or 12 million illegal alien invaders that were able to come through our country through the southern border. He is not trolling the Canadians. He's certainly not trolling your prime minister, who he refers to as your governor.
So the part that I think a lot of Canadians wouldn't get, and first off, people will be angry, and there's a very emotional response, and Donald Trump, by talking about the 51st state and the tariff issues, may actually help re-elect Trudeau's Liberal Party with Mark Carney as the new leader. But the part that a lot of Canadians would be scratching their heads at and saying, well, that doesn't make any sense. There's no aggressive war with China. There's no, nothing with Russia. We don't have to be worried. We're past the point of needing to be worried about defense, is the view of a lot of people.
The view of anybody that thinks that is sound asleep. And let me wake them up. Number one, let's go back to World War II, of which, remember, Canada has shed more blood per capita than probably any democracy in the West in pursuit of freedom. Okay? The bravery and courage of the Canadian people can't be questioned. It's unbelievable what you guys have done. But I think now you got to think about, what was that all for? If you go back to World War II, if we're looking at the same place like in 1939 after the invasion of Poland, when the war really actually kind of got going, not the preamble to it, which was a long lead up, there were not that many casualties even through the fall of France. Look what's happened in Ukraine in 3 years, and we've been adamantly opposed to any involvement in Ukraine. It was ridiculous. As President Trump reiterated today, 1.5 million people have either been slaughtered or wounded in this war. 1 million Ukrainians and 750,000 Russian troops. Ukraine looks like Kiev. If you look at the carnage that's gone on, you throw in the Middle East, it's far greater than the early years of the Second World War, and we saw how that ended. If you also look at the Chinese Communist Party, unrestricted warfare, the Chinese Communist Party has been at war with the United States since May of 1989. Xi said it. The People's War. They're doing it through cyber. They're doing it through political warfare. They're doing it through information warfare. They're doing
political interference in Canada.
Canada, you guys are much far. Look, as badly as we're infiltrated, Canada's actually worse. And Trudeau's exacerbated this. This is something the Canadian people got to wake up to. You're losing your sovereignty as you speak. That's why your crisis on your northern border. The irony in Canada, given everything through valor of arms and courage that you've defended, now what was always strategically your greatest, the thing you had greatest, which was your northern border and kind of the Arctic, now becomes your greatest exposure to actual losing territorial integrity and sovereignty, the Chinese Communist Party, which has already infiltrated Canada. Look at Huawei. Look at all the situations in Canada.
I suggest you watch this interview. It's really good, and I know how it is, that especially with the media has made a lot of people just hate Steve Bannon. Oh, Bannon's bad. Other people are just, he's the best. Personally, I say he's kind of like Trump. He flaps at the gills lots, right? But this guy is a good friend of the President of the United States. He's giving it to you straight out. They know about the corruption. They know China has infiltrated our government. They know China has been securing huge, vast portions of land, companies, you name it. They're involved in every aspect of what we think is a Canadian life. That's a fact. And he just dropped the bomb. There it was. He's not trolling us. He's trying to wake us up. He's trying to throw subtle hints to get people to start to wake up. And people like him don't get the time of day on media. And that's why I'm playing this clip, is because you should be able to hear what he's saying, because he is the right or left or pinky or thumb or whatever of Donald Trump. They've known each other for a long time. Take what he says and think about it. I think what he said makes a lot of sense. Now, just kind of an other news thing, this kind of popped in here. Another company leaving Canada, and this is kind of a big one. These guys played a little bit of an investment thing with GameStop. They exposed the stock market and the banking institutions pretty good with GameStop. So that's probably how you know the name. That's a whole nother story in itself. But just as a company in general, they're fairly big. They're very common. It's kind of there's a generation thing here that really kept these guys afloat and made them strong. So this is going to be sad.
Video gaming retailer GameStop is selling its operations in Canada. The company says it's taking this step here and in France as part of an evaluation of its international assets. GameStop CEO appeared to make reference to taxes and other government policies in connection with the departures. Last year, executives indicated they are looking to cut costs and plan for longer-term profit with a smaller network of stores. Video gaming retailer
Taxes and policies. Gone. Companies can't do it. They can't stay afloat. They can't do it. And it's even harder for the smaller companies. As the company gets smaller and smaller and smaller, it's harder and harder and harder and harder. You have to make a profit. A person has to be able to live. And if you're putting your heart and soul into a company, you should have the money to be able to take a break from it and not have to worry about your house freezing. You should have the financial income that you don't have the major worries. It should be a secure job. And it's hard to do that in Canada because you're taxed to death. You're literally taxed. You're raked over the coals. And companies they're fleeing. They're tired of it. And now with the states lowering income taxes and giving all these amazing incentives to come to the states, I can't remember who said it. I think it was Paul Yev. You're going to hear a large sucking sound, and that's all the companies leaving, and our doors closing, and they're all going south. So I'm going to move on to this Canada game. I got a kick out of watching it. Depending on the channel you watched, the booing was louder or it wasn't so bad. I got a kick out of that. Now, I believe this one was open mic. I thought it was a heck of a lot more of a respectful game. But Chantal Kreviazuk absolutely destroyed our song. And the worst part about it is the Canadians that were in the crowd started singing, and then right off the hop, because she changed the words, trying to be some cocky, I don't know what, leftist, what lunatic, threw everybody off. Because that's not O Canada. Like, why are you defaming our song? Why are you... Smarten up. And then people get back onto it again, and then they're trying to sing, and then she starts going off into all these weird, American style. More than anything, it's the booing. The booing. I was glad to see that the rhetoric here was turned way down. But it was good because this clip shows that if you were watching a propaganda, they purposely were making it sound like the booing was bad. They're trying to stir hate and division. And I'm glad that after seeing it and going, well, I'm flicking through the channels and going, hey, wait a minute, how come the booing's really loud on this one and it wasn't loud? So I ended up doing some research, and yeah, it wasn't that bad. It wasn't. It was much better, much more respectable. So I thought that was pretty good. And then this isn't Canadian, I had to show this clip. This is priceless. This is during the winning goal. This lady's trying to interview this guy. I'm just gonna play the clip because it's just too funny.
Series. I want to talk to my friend here with the Canadian flag. The stress on your face.
Sorry?
The stress on your face. What are you feeling?
I'm turning red. What am I feeling? A lot of anxiety right now. It's reminding me of the 2010 Olympics. When I was a kid, I was watching it. It was a great game, and we'll see if we can get it again here against the States.
What would be the storybook ending here for you?
I think we all know. Crosby game winner, throwing the glove outside of the glass. That'd be the number one moment, I think.
Another vote for Sid the Kid as the golden boy here for Team
100%.
Canada.
Always Sid the Kid to us.
Tell me about just how good this hockey's been. We watched 60 minutes, incredible hockey, and now overtime.
Whatever happens, this is the best hockey I've watched in a long time, and it's a great move instead of the All-Star game.
It's a lot of close calls. I'd say it's better than the All-Star game.
Oh,
these guys are playing. The storybook ending everyone was hoping for. Team Canada, celebrate.
I get a kick out of it. The whole interview, she's in his face, and he's like watching the screen, and he's focusing, and he's looking at the other screen. He's so intent, but he's answering her questions. It was priceless. But a great Canadian moment brought to you by Citizen Journal. Oh, too funny. Well, you guys, I'm going to call that a wrap here for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit the like, make sure you subscribe and share. And until next time, you've been watching the Canadian Citizen Journal. I'm your host, Alias Tagay. Take care.